morning and welcome back to Football League World TV. We are at the end of a week, which means it's time for the AFL weekend preview. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and I'm delighted to be joined by my two colleagues, Adam Jones and Billy Mulley. Adam, how are you getting on this morning?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. I'm just glad, really, that the EFL action, certainly for the Championship anyway, is back and my team are back in action. So, yeah, I'm in a good mood, but let's hope it's not ruined tomorrow.
Billy, we've just been talking off air. Your club, Luton Town, playing tonight. How are you heading into this weekend?
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't ruin my weekend as early as Friday night, but I'm glad to be on Football League World TV for the second time this morning.
Yeah, busy this morning you are, Billy. Streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, as we always are. Any fans joining us want to send in their thoughts on the games that we're discussing, along with some score predictions, it would be great to hear from you, and we'll look to get those up on the show. We will start things off with the Championship. We're going to bypass Luton's clash with Hull tonight and look ahead to tomorrow's action to begin the weekend preview. We're going to start with two sides that are currently in the bottom three of the Championship. Coventry in 24th, hosting Middlesbrough, who enter the weekend sitting 22nd in the table. We'll start with the home side, Coventry. They've only played 7 times due to their issues with the pitch at their home stadium, but after 7 games, they're still awaiting their first win heading into this weekend. Billy, I want you to argue why they can get that first win this weekend against Middlesbrough.
I think first and foremost, the performances haven't been as bad as picking up 3 points in 7 games. Coventry, obviously, the expectations given the campaign they endured last year, were going to be significantly higher. There was talk about them being playoff contenders, which I know it hasn't been the best of starts, but we know in this division you don't need to have the best of starts to finish off strongly, as Sheffield United and Nottingham Forest displayed last time out. I think they didn't see any of the big 3 picked off as well, which I think is massive. And I think their recent form has stemmed from the fact that they've had to play 6 of their 7 games away from home. Coventry Building Society Arena was a massive fortress for them last year, especially during the earlier parts of the season. Haven't managed to recapture that yet. And with this being their second game on home soil, I'm sure they'll put in another decent enough performance. Of course, Middlesbrough, strong opposition in their own rights. Well, that's what the table telling us otherwise at the moment. But Coventry, for me, I'm waiting for things to click. I'm not considering them as relegation candidates. Performances, that the fact that they've not played as many games, I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of scope for them to put things right and get this season back on track and achieve good things again, because they've definitely got the potential within the squad. They've got Robbins, who for me is one of the better Championship managers. There's a lot of good moving parts. It's just putting them all together and starting this season off again from a results-based sort of standpoint very well.
Two sides, really, that on paper shouldn't be where they are in the table at this stage of the season. We'll move on to Middlesbrough. They've picked up 2 wins from their opening 10 fixtures, and that's been a surprise start, for the T-siders. They've got some brilliant players on paper, but it's not been good, and there's been a lot of speculation surrounding the future of Chris Wilder in recent weeks. I think the latest quote from Wilder is that speculation linking him with Bournemouth is just nonsense. So with that in mind, Adam, this kind of can't be helpful, all this noise around Wilder's future, even though he's sort of quashing that speculation.
No, and I do think I do feel a little bit sorry for him, because I think there's been perhaps more made of the links, the Bournemouth links, than there should have been, really. There's been a lot of noise, as you say. And yeah, it won't help at all, kind of, in terms of the morale either. With the Daily Mail, I think we were reporting not so long ago that there was tensions in the boardroom between Wilder and Gibson because of recruitment. And I think you could see that really kind of in the summer with the striker department, obviously with Dwight Gale, I think it was wanted, and then I think Gibson kind of vetoed it and wanted a younger option instead. But I think in the end, I think Gibson and Wilder are two very ambitious people. They both want the best for Middlesbrough, and for me, I do think that he'll definitely turn things around. And I don't think there'll be kind of as much kind of tension in the boardroom now. I think there'll be a lot of kind of cohesion, and I think people will pull together. I think in this time, it's a very difficult time. As you say, that they're a side that should be a lot higher than they are at the moment. They're a side that's got some good potential. They've got, most of the ingredients I think needed. I think the only ingredients I think are missing is perhaps maybe a better kind of replacement for Marcus Tavernier and maybe that kind of that marquee striker, perhaps that marquee signing in the forward department. But they've still got some very, very strong players. Obviously, Ryan Giles and Isaiah Jones on either wing. Who can also create as well, and that's perhaps one of the reasons why they don't need. They're not absolutely desperate for a Tavernier kind of absolute kind of replacement, like a top quality one at the moment. But the international break could be a fresh start for them, and I'm hoping that it is, because they're a side that's got a lot of potential. You can see, as I said, that they've got all the ingredients needed really to go forward and start claiming more wins. And I think the only real concern is in the final third really, but they've got some options in there, definitely in midfield and up top, even if they want perhaps one more quality kind of option each position. I do think they've got what it takes to get themselves up the table very shortly.
Coventry and Middlesbrough then, two teams that could undoubtedly do with a win this weekend. We'll get some predictions in now. Billy, I'll come to you first.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Coventry win. I think they'll finally get it this weekend.
And what about you, Adam?
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Middlesbrough win. I have a good feeling about Middlesbrough. I think in the coming months they'll definitely get themselves up the table. And I think when the World Cup break comes, I think they'll be in a much better position.
Moving over to Reading then. Reading sitting third in the table. They host Huddersfield Town this weekend. Huddersfield are, of course, 23rd in the table, sandwiched between Coventry and Middlesbrough, who we've just been discussing. The real talking point in this game is Mark Fotheringham, appointed as Huddersfield's head coach in the week gone by. This is going to be his first fixture. He's obviously inheriting a Huddersfield squad that's sitting 23rd in the table, just 2 wins all season. One of those came last time out against Cardiff City, shortly after Danny Schofield's sacking as the previous head coach. So there's a little bit of optimism there with Huddersfield. A win the other side of the international break, Billy, and now a new head coach in the building. And we're going to see a new manager bounce with Huddersfield this weekend.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. As we saw last year, I think that notion of the new manager bounce really came to fruition. There was a lot of managerial changes sort of around the Christmas time and a couple of months after that and before that. And we did see that there was a clear indication that new managers were starting their life as a manager very well. And I think this has the potential to provide a similar kind of situation. Fotheringham being somewhat of an unknown entity to English football over the last few years in terms of his managerial career. That is, he's obviously played a huge role at Hertha Berlin. We were just speaking off air about the fact that he was in a prominent role within the first team, and the fact that he took training sessions, I think, can only bode well coming into the managerial game. We've seen it with Michael Bill. I think a lot of quotes coming from Aston Villa when he departed for QPR was that he was very hands-on. He had a big influence under Steven Gerrard, and was a massive character and factor in why they had built what they'd built. So I think there's a similar kind of opportunity here for Fotheringham to really showcase what he's picked up in another country. I think it's come at a point where it's needed for Huddersfield. Obviously, Schofield, it was a difficult situation for him to walk into. Of course, there was a fair few changes within the playing squad. Seen O'Brien, Sonani, Toffolo, a fair amount of players that were integral to their success depart. Corberan going as well. It was always going to be very, very difficult. But the fact that they've now got the likes of Helic in, I think he's going to be integral to the success they'll undoubtedly see as the season progresses. I think it's a very, very good appointment. I don't know if it's going to result in a victory come tomorrow, given Reading's start to the season and the evident bounce there is around the club at the moment. But I think this can only bring positivity, maybe in the longer term, and maybe this means that this new manager bounce might drag out a little bit longer than Huddersfield fans might hope.
It is tough for Huddersfield this weekend, as Billy sort of touched on there. Reading are having a really good start to the season, sitting third in such a competitive division, even at this early stage of the season, is massive credit to the work that Paul Ince is doing with the club. They're particularly strong at home, 4 wins from 5 home fixtures. I think it was Sunderland, the only side that have beaten Reading at home this season. On paper then, Reading sitting third, Huddersfield sitting 23rd, a new sort of inexperienced figure in at Huddersfield, and Reading absolutely flying at home. It looks like a pretty presentable fixture for Reading, Adam.
It does, yeah, but we've been kind of part of games where it's kind of been a little bit of a 50-50, really. It was the same, really, in our final game before the international break against Wigan Athletic. Wigan could have taken the 3 points, we could have taken the 3 points. So that's my only real concern, really, that most games are close. And, I do want more kind of Blackburn-esque performances, really, Blackburn at home-esque performances. With that 3-0 victory, I'd like some more convincing results. But they're taking on me a little bit of an emotional roller coaster at the moment. Obviously, with the inconsistency, that's obviously a source of frustration. But dare I say it, I don't think consistency really matters for Reading. I think it's just getting points on the board. If we win one and lose one, then that's absolutely fine, to be honest. As long as we can keep on kind of getting points on the board, I think that's the most important thing, really. I think we need to retain a back 5. Obviously, we switched to a back 4 against Sunderland, and the experiment just didn't really work. Tom McIntyre's not a left back, and I think Paul Ince kind of cost us that game. But he's been very good in other areas. So obviously we've been mostly kind of very good at home, and that's obviously been very promising, because we haven't been very good at home kind of last season, but this season we've been decent. And I think the only thing for us, really, is that we won't know exactly what to expect, really, from Fotheringham, and I think that will kind of play against us perhaps tomorrow. And maybe it won't be the kind of the banker home win that many people are expecting.
Let's get your predictions then. I'll let Billy go first again here.
I'm going to go 2-1 Reading.
And how about you, Adam?
I'm going to go something a little bit more cautious. I'm going to go with 2-2. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. 4-3 was the score last time in Huddersfield's favour at the Select Car Leasing Stadium, so I'm going to go with a 2-2.
Moving on to Sunday then, and another new manager in the dugout. This time, unsurprisingly, it's at Watford. They head to Stoke. Stoke sitting 14th in the table heading into the weekend, and Watford in 10th. The big story again is around the manager. Slaven Bilic has been appointed as Rob Edwards' successor at Watford. Great to see Bilic back in the Championship. Adam, come to you first with this. What are you expecting from Slaven Bilic at Watford side?
I think we're going to see a back 4. I think we'll see a little bit of a change. Obviously, Rob Edwards has often gone with a back 3, so I think we will go. He will go for a back 4, perhaps kind of building from the back, kind of possession, that kind of attacking football. I think it will suit Watford, actually, because they should be dominant in most games, really. So I think that Bilic's kind of appointment will suit them. I think it's a sort of appointment that should have been made before Edwards was kind of installed, because I think that Watford are desperate to get back to the Premier League kind of at the first time of asking. And you can't blame them, considering that they have the likes of Ismail Assar and João Pedro. They'll want to keep those players for the long term. So, I think that he should have been appointed really at the start of the season instead of Edwards, if they were going to kind of go for someone, with perhaps a little bit of a shorter term focus. And I think he does have kind of the CV as well to cope with the weight of expectations on him and the quality of players that he's going to be obviously managing as well. Obviously, Slaven Bilic has previously managed Croatia, and he's been managing the likes of Rakitic and Luka Modric as well. So I think that he does have the CV to be successful at Watford. But in terms of what we're expecting to see, I think it's going to be attacking football on the front foot. And I think, as I said, I think that will suit the Hornets, to be honest. And I can definitely see them being very successful, really, as West Brom were during the 2019-20 season. I think this will be a good match, or at least for about 9 months anyway, and then we'll see after that.
Heading to Stoke then. Stoke are in transition, after their own managerial change earlier in the season. Do you think that this is a good game for Bilic, Billy?
Yeah, because Stoke haven't been fully firing for a while. They've been a bit meh this season. They haven't turned up too many trees, but at the same time, they've been solid enough in certain departments. So I guess in that respect, it's probably a good game to be introduced to. They haven't really built too much so far, and still in the infancy of Alex Neil's tenure. It's probably the best time to play them. I still envisage Stoke becoming a real unit under Alex Neil. I've got a lot of faith and a lot of trust in what Neil can do. But I think for Bilic and for Neil, sorry, he would have had this 2 weeks to prepare fully for his own squad. He wouldn't have taken too much notice about Watford, because I guess when a new manager comes in, you can't really plan, you can't really adjust to their style of play. As Adam said, we do expect that back four to come to fruition, but there's no guarantee that will happen in this year of the Championship. So it's more about what Alex Neil can do to prepare his Sunderland side for the test, rather than focusing on the opposition. But at the same time, I think both managers will be viewing this as quite a presentable opportunity to get 3 points on the board. Alex Neil will look at the difficulties Watford have had in recent weeks, or the inconsistent and imbalanced squad. Of course, as Adam said there, Sarr and Pedro are miles better than sort of the division would suggest, but they've also got players that are not at that kind of level. And I think that's something that will have to be addressed in January transfer window. But for now, there needs to be a system that lessens that imbalance, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm expecting a good game. I'm expecting a few goals, and for Watford fans' sake, I'm hoping Slaven Bilic brings a good brand of attacking football that similar to what West Brom saw when they were promoted a few seasons back now.
Before we get into some predictions, then let's just discuss Stoke's role in this fixture. Adam, do you think that they're getting Watford at a good time, given Bilic has only had sort of a week or so with the players?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar, really, to the way that kind of Watford would view kind of Stoke City in Billy's eyes. I think I'd rather be facing Watford now, in kind of the infancy of Bilic's reign, rather than perhaps a few months on. I think, as I said, I think that Bilic is going to be successful at Vicarage Road this season. He's got obviously promotion on his CV. He's got a glittering managerial CV, really, just in general. So I'd rather be facing them now, and I think the pressure really at the moment is all on Watford. Obviously, they're the ones that are expecting to get back to the top flight at the first time of asking as well. And in terms of Stoke, I mean, I was very impressed with their 0-0 draw away at QPR. I know it seems kind of strange to say that, but they created plenty of chances. Dwight Gale, I think, is getting closer to scoring, which is a promising thing for them as well. And they were kind of full value really for their point. So that's kind of promising for them coming into this tie, and that's the reason why I'm kind of being optimistic with them in terms of a score prediction.
Let's get your prediction for this game then, Adam.
I'm going to go with the 1-0 Stoke. I think that things will definitely improve for Watford, but I think it's a little bit early for Bilic to be claiming his first win.
And how about you, Billy?
Yeah, I've got to back up the fact that I said it'll be open now. I'm going to go 2-2. I think it'll be a very strongly contested game and some goals to go with it.
Moving down into League One now, we're going to start by discussing Cambridge hosting Derby County. Cambridge sitting 7th in the League One table heading into the weekend, and Derby down in 11th, having not played last weekend. We'll start with Derby here. Another new manager in the dugout in Paul Warne. This is our first look at Warne since he left Rotherham and took up the reins at Derby. Billy, what are we expecting from Paul Warne's Derby?
A lot, I think. It's well documented that Paul Warne is a top League One manager, obviously doing a very good job with Rotherham in the Championship, operating the shoestring budget. I'm expecting good things. In terms of how they operate, they're going to be a possession-based side, which Rotherham never were in League One. But you look at the Derby squad and you tend to think that with the players they've got, with the systems that previous managers have used, it would cater to a more ball playing formation and style. But I'm not too sure if that will come to fruition. I think that would be an interesting factor of the Paul Warne reign. But yeah, Paul Warne back in League One. You'll be very, very confident of what he can do. He's got the majority of his coaching staff with him. Richie Barker will be with him, which will be a massive plus for what Derby can achieve. You think of what Paul Warne's consistently done in League One with Rotherham, and then you factor in the budget that he's probably going to be able to operate with in January. It's promising signs for Derby, but that's without the ball being kicked. It's all well talking about how good this could be. It's all going to boil down to how results and how performances play out. So yeah, at the moment I'm positive about this appointment. It's going to be difficult for Cambridge, I think, to live with such a dangerous Derby side. But ultimately, as I'm sure we'll come on to, Cambridge are playing a very good attacking brand of football as well themselves. So it's, it promises to be a very, very good game, and another one that it's going to be difficult to label a score prediction, because I'm at the moment, my head's very, very confused with where I'm going to go with this one.
In the previous section, we spoke about Fotheringham and Bilic and the short sort of turnaround between their appointments and the games this weekend. Warne was actually unveiled at Derby that little bit earlier. How do you think that sort of fixtureless week last week will have impacted him in preparing Derby and getting his ideas across, Billy?
I think that ultimately, every minute, every sort of hour in football, it's going to help you better prepare for this kind of new project for him. I think the fact that he's had the large amount of this international break, that the fact that they've had a couple of internationals go might have hindered things a little bit, but ultimately I think that having the core group of squad together during the majority of this international break will only be positive. I think that looking at this fixture as well, it's another one that you know what you're going to come up against with Cambridge. I think Mark Bonner's gained that sort of consistency, so I think it's more about focusing on what Derby can do. It's more focusing on themselves rather than the opposition. I think that can only bode well for Paul Warne. I think given where the squad is positioned as well, it wasn't an underperforming squad by any means. Sort of Rossini's departure was seen as unfair by some, but ultimately it's a position now where they can build upon. It's not picking players' heads up from the trenches, and the confidence isn't low. It's still high enough, and I think that means that Warne's job is not going to be as difficult as first imagined. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to see.
Let's talk Cambridge then, Adam, sitting 7th in the table, and that is just, a sign of how good they've been so far this season. And, we speak all the time about how competitive League One is. So for them to be sat 7th is an achievement already, and they've been brilliant at home. 4 of their 5 wins have come on home soil this season, and they're going to want to continue that with the scalp of Paul Warne and Derby, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. I think Mark Bonner staying, I think, is going to be, for them, it is going to be massive. And I think it'll kind of be a boost in this game as well, and may kind of earn them a point. But obviously, we'll come on to score prediction in a bit. Obviously, their defence can be a little bit vulnerable at times, but I think, as you said, they've got a very good home record, and I think this may kind of bode well for them in terms of at least getting a draw, or perhaps even getting all 3 points. And there's multiple players as well. Sam Smith is one of them, kind of contributing going forward as well. And they've got multiple players, as I say, that can contribute. So that will be kind of that's kind of promising for them. But obviously they've had a week off. Obviously, I haven't had a midweek game. I think for them, that will be a plus for them as well. I think they'll be kind of reasonably sharp. I think they may even be perhaps a little bit sharper than Derby, and obviously with a home advantage as well. I think that'll kind of work in their favour. So yeah, I think that they've got a decent chance coming into this game. I don't think it's a banker really kind of a derby win, but I think they do have a bit of a chance of getting something out of this game. Even if it's just a point. But at this stage of the season and where they're sitting, I think they can afford to take a point. And if they do get something from the game with the experienced players that they're kind of playing with, like David McGoldrick and Curtis Davis, and I think that would be a kind of a big result for them. So and obviously it's hard to prepare for this game as well. You kind of know what you're going to get from a Paul Warne side, but he's been very kind of versatile with his formations as well in the past. You don't know whether he's going to go with a back three as he has done at Rotherham sometimes, or whether he's going to go with the back four. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult game for Cambridge, but I'd definitely say not impossible.
Let's get some predictions then. Adam, up first.
I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I'm like Billy. I can't really kind of pick really a difference between two sides. I'm confused because there's pros and cons for each side. There's different factors working in their favour. So I'm going to go with the 1-1 draw.
And how about you, Billy?
I'm also going to go 1-0. I'm going to make it boring and go for the 1-0 draw as well. But yeah, all the factors that we've just mentioned there, it just seems so evenly balanced.
Moving upwards in the division then, Ipswich versus Portsmouth at Portman Road, second versus third in the table. Could be a really good game. This one will start with Ipswich. They suffered their first league defeat of the season last weekend against Plymouth, who staged a brilliant comeback to beat them. Kieran McKenna's saddle want to react. Billy, how important is it, do you think, that they do from that first defeat of the season?
Yeah, I think it's a massive, massive test of character. League One's been brilliant the last few weeks when you think the games we've been blessed with, really. That one last week with Ipswich, Plymouth, very, very high standard football. I know Ipswich were criticised for that, but I think for large parts of the game, they did play some very good football. They just came unstuck against, a very confident Plymouth side that are absolutely thriving at the moment. And I see there being no reason why Ipswich can't get back to the performances they've displayed. The majority of this campaign already deservedly were top of the league. And I think that I've been very complimentary towards McKenna and his squad this season. As mentioned there, that just you look at every position of championship quality. It's just it's a test of mentality more than anything now. I think we all know what they can do with the ball at their feet. It's a massive, massive test. And when you have just lost your first game of the season, the last team you want to be playing against is Portsmouth at the moment, because they've been incredible in their own right. So yeah, I think for Ipswich, it's going back to trying to restore confidence, not going back to basics, because I think there's a lot of positivity that they could have taken from that Plymouth defeat. But ultimately, they are a squad full of real quality players that a lot of them had championship interest when they decided to join Ipswich, which again signals the kind of quality and kind of consistency they can expect as the season progresses. Of course, when you've just lost playing Portsmouth, it's not the best thing you could have wished for, but ultimately they've got what it takes to get a positive result.
Portsmouth weren't in action last week, but results went their way, really, and they're still very much in the mix to sort of take the lead at the top of League One. They're still unbeaten as well, but this is a massive test, really, heading to Portman Road, isn't it? Adam, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree with you. I don't think there's really going to be a more difficult test for them this season. I know that Sheffield Wednesday have got some fantastic depth as well. I can kind of draw that similarity really between Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday. They've got that kind of championship quality depth, which I think is absolutely superb for them. But Sheffield Wednesday, they do have their defensive vulnerabilities, and I think for me, that's kind of where Ipswich will kind of edge it really. For me, has been the most difficult kind of opponents of the season, especially at Portman Road as well. That's going to be obviously extremely tough, but I do think kind of that the psychological kind of factors come into it as well, because obviously as you mentioned, they didn't play last week and they've got that game in hand, so they can kind of, I guess, in a way that some would say they can see it as a free hit, really, considering where they finished last season. Obviously, outside the promotion mix, they can see it as kind of a free hit and see how they do, and perhaps that kind of that less pressure will kind of help them in a way. And I also think that perhaps the Walton header coming off the bar will be just as much of a boost for Portsmouth as it will be for as it was for Plymouth Argyle. Really, kind of that difference in morale. We'd be having a different conversation really if that header had gone in. Obviously, like Dieng at Sunderland earlier in the season. I think, imagine if we were talking about another goalkeeper goal, that would have been very good. But yeah, in terms of Portsmouth, obviously they played Plymouth Argyle last time as well. I think they'll be very disappointed with the way that they were cut open. Really, I still remember it for the second goal, for Plymouth's second goal. I think they'll be very disappointed really the way that they were cut open. But I think they'll be very grateful for the last point that they got against the Pilgrims. Many people didn't really see it coming, but they made the most of the opportunity that they had at the very end, and the mental factors are definitely in their favour. But in terms of Ipswich, I do think that they're very, very strong, and I don't think they'll be too disheartened. I think by the Plymouth defeat. I think that they played well. It's just the only disappointment really is that they didn't kind of build on the lead.
Let's get some predictions then. Another really hard game to call this one. Billy, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think I've got to remain consistent with the betting show. I had Portsmouth or draw, even though I was very complimentary towards Ipswich. I still think it's going to be a draw. So yeah, I'm going to go for a entertaining 2-2.
How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm just having to think about the Portsmouth defender for the second Plymouth goal. I thought it was very poor, and I think Ipswich are going to react very strongly to their first defeat of the season. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 Ipswich win.
Moving down into League Two then, we're going to look at Swindon versus Northampton, two of League Two's in-form sides at the moment. We'll start with the home side. Swindon, they weren't convincing starters, but they've won their last 3 in the league and they remain unbeaten at home in the league. Northampton are sitting second in the table and Swindon are down in 9th heading into the weekend, Adam. But Swindon are going to prove particularly tough opposition for Northampton, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I was kind of fearing the worst from them really after that opening day against Harrogate, losing a lot of players as well. But they've been very consistent kind of ever since, kind of drawing and winning games. And they're kind of, have a tendency now to grind out results, which, I think that'll frighten Northampton really. And the fact that it will be a close game, I think will kind of be unnerving kind of to the visitors. And yeah, I think a draw really against Grimsby for Swindon kind of last time out, I think would have been fair really. So for them to kind of get the victory and get the 3 points, I think for me that might be the difference between playoffs and perhaps not getting in the promotion mix at all. So they'll be full of confidence from following that Grimsby win, which they obviously arguably perhaps didn't deserve, but they did well in the end to get the 3 points. But I guess it's no surprise really that they're doing well considering kind of some of their recruitment over the summer. Obviously the 2 goal scorers last time out, obviously Luke Jeffcott, I think he's definitely on his way up. Obviously shone at Plymouth and is now going to show his worth, I think, at the county ground for the season. I think Ronan Darcy as well will be keen to prove Bolton wrong really, that they should have kept him really. Obviously he was labelled as a big prospect really at the University of Bolton Stadium, and then obviously hasn't fully kicked on since, but there's every chance really that the Robins might see his potential. So I'm excited to see how he develops as well, because he's still got plenty of time in his career as well. But as I say, compared to where they were kind of on the opening day, Swindon, I think they'll be very pleased, but perhaps kind of they might feel aggrieved really that they're not higher in the table considering their unbeaten run. But obviously, considering the fact that they lost some kind of big players in the summer, including Harry McCurdy, I think they'll definitely take this current position, and it's something that they can build on. So it's going to be a very, very tough task, I think, for Northampton.
We can talk Swindon up as much as we want. Northampton probably not going to be bothered. 4 wins on the spin. They've got League Two's in-form player in Sam Hoskins. He's got 11 goals in 10 games this season. No matter what Swindon's home form is and the results in recent weeks, John Brady's Northampton, they're not going to fear them, are they, Billy?
No, not at all. I think Northampton have entered that kind of mindset again like they did last year, where they had patches of form where they were just unplayable. I think they've got a real balance when they play. vary their attacking play. They can go direct and see joy that way. They can play through the thirds. So I think in that respect, it keeps them fresh. It keeps them difficult to predict. And as you say, that man there, Sam Hoskins, has been excellent. 11 goals in 10 games. That's more goals than 10 teams in League Two. So he's absolutely thriving at the moment, and there's no reason why that should halt at the moment. A player that's really creative as well. He's not just a player that scores the goals. He's the one that can create them. He's the one that can carve through defences. He's a player that will drop in and come deeper and link the play. There's a lot to like about Sam Hoskins, but they've got quality all across the pitch. And again, it's a real balanced squad. They've got players that will come in as well from the bench and make things really difficult for the opposition. So I think at the moment, in terms of game management, in terms of winning games in different ways, I would say Northampton are the team to beat, but we've got Leyton Orient in the division who are just taking things to a new level. But Northampton are a top team at the moment. It's just about how long can they continue playing with confidence. And I think in terms of tests, bar Leyton Orient at the moment and probably Stevenage, this is probably one of the more difficult games there is in the division.
Swindon versus Northampton then. Billy, let's get your score prediction first.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Swindon win. Northampton win, sorry. Northampton.
Adam?
Yeah, I'm going to go same as Billy. I think it's going to be a 2-1 Northampton. And I think, as Billy said, they have patches of form really there where they're just kind of unplayable really. So, I think it'll be a 2-1 victory for them. But interesting development for Billy ahead of the whole game tonight. Obviously, Shota Arveladze being sacked, which that's interesting.
Yeah, we'll just touch on that then, Billy. How are you feeling about that?
I'm probably as confused as anybody watching right now. Just wow, that is very, very strange. The timing of it is very strange. I know that the pressure has been accumulating on him, but the fact that it's just happened is crazy to me. But ultimately, hopefully that can play in Luton's favour. Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be plenty of reaction and news on that over on the website footballleagueworld.co.uk. So make sure you head over there to see all the reaction of Hull sacking their manager Shota Arveladze. Right, we got slightly sidetracked there, but that is it for the AFL weekend preview. Thanks to Billy and Adam for joining me, and thanks to anybody that's joined us across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We'll be back next week on Football League World TV. There's a midweek schedule next week. We'll be reacting to what's gone on over the weekend, and there's probably going to be plenty of managerial news as we've just sort of got onto there. So please do join us again next week. But between now and then, have a good weekend, enjoy the football, and take care of yourselves.